Hello and welcome to this dynamic calendar monthly schedule Excel template tutorial. In this video, I've got two goals in mind and I'm excited to tackle them with you. First, we'll get to know this template, how it works, what it does, and the cool features it includes. Second, we'll build the entire template from scratch, step by step, so you can follow along and create it yourself. You'll find a free download link for the finished template in the description below. Feel free to pause, rewind, or replay this video as much as you need. My goal is to help you not just learn how to build this template, but also to pick up some handy Excel functions along the way. But before we dive in, let me give you a quick tour of what we're about to create. This template is a dynamic monthly calendar designed to simplify your planning. Once you select your month here, as well as the year, the calendar updates automatically to display 6 weeks of dates. You can add up to 5 items per day, such as events or appointments, and mark them as complete using a checkmark or a checkbox provided, depending on the version. To populate the calendar, simply list your events here along with their dates in the table on the left, and they'll automatically appear in the calendar view. It's pretty straightforward, efficient, and designed to make planning hassle-free. Now that we have covered the basics, let's dive straight into the good stuff. Now let's go over how to use this template. Step 1. Set your month and year on cells C6 and C8 respectively. So let's just pick June of 2026 for this example. And as you can see, once you have set those numbers, the calendar will be updated automatically. This panel will show the month's first day and last day, as well as the start of the week. Notice that the calendar will always start on a Sunday, but the weeks and the daily values will be adjusted to reflect your corresponding month. Light gray colors, such as this one on the 31st, as well as on the second half of week 5 and all of week 6, will show when the days correspond to either the previous month or the next month, and you will have a total of 6 weeks to make sure that any month and year combination will always fit in this view. For example, if you set March of 2025, you can see that March 1st is a Saturday here at the end of week 1, and that the last day, March 31st of 2025, here, is on a Monday in week 6. Days for February on week 1 from the 23rd all the way to the 28th, as well as for April on week 6. This April 1st till April 5th are marked on your calendar but appear on a lighter tone of gray. Step 2 is for you to add your events or appointments in the table on the left, starting on row 18. Here, set a date on column B using your local language format. In my case, I have a month, day, then year format. And then define the name of the event on column C. You will see that the events you add on this table will be displayed on the calendar automatically on their corresponding day. For example, I just added February 23rd, 2025 for my event. And you can see that on Sunday 23rd, my event appears here. Also notice that, for example, on Wednesday 26th, I have 3 events. And if I go to my table on the left, I can see that those 3 events have the same date. For each day, up to 5 events will be displayed. In case you have more than 5 events, just the first 5 will be shown. Step 3. Finally, when you have set your dates and events, you can use the checkboxes provided to mark events or appointments as completed. When you use the checkboxes or the checkmarks, notice that a strike-through effect will be applied to your events on the calendar. Leaving empty or using the dash symbol effectively causes the same thing. No effect is added. In the checkbox version, you simply have to click on the checkbox to activate the strike-through effect, or leave it blank if you don't want to select anything as done. And lastly, whenever you want to create a new monthly schedule, I suggest you create a copy from a blank template so that you don't have to delete all your edits from a previous month. Once in the new file, you can go through steps 1 through 3 again. And now for the main event. let's dive straight into the step-by-step guide to building this template from scratch. For this template, we'll break down the creation process into 6 main sections. We'll first create the parameters table, and then the events table at the bottom. Then we'll do the calendar, first doing the layout, then the formulas, and concluding with the conditional formatting. And finally, we'll convert this drop-down version into the checkbox version, the one you see here now. In each of these sections, we'll handle all the necessary cell values, formulas, and formatting step by step. To make things easier, I recommend you use the exact same cells and formulas I do. This way, you can compare your version with mine and quickly spot any differences if you run into issues. And remember, feel free to pause, rewind, or replay this video as much as you need. Let's begin. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new worksheet using this plus sign at the bottom. And then I'm going to rename this sheet 1 into Dynamic Calendar, or DC for short. Then I'm just going to add a dash tutorial. Now, one thing you need to know is that I selected page layout, colors, and then blue color here for the pattern blue. You can select whichever other pattern you like. I suggest you stick to this so that our colors match. Once you have concluded your version, you can always simply come back here and select other pattern that you would like to use as well. Another thing I'm going to add, just for us to have everything the same, I'm going to add these two at the top on cell B2 so that we always have that same reference. Let's start then with the parameters. First, I'm just going to copy these as values, which is the same as if you were typing them. Starting on B6, I trigger this paste special with Ctrl-Alt-V, and then I'm selecting V for values, and then OK. And then before formatting the rest of this worksheet, I'm just going to copy the widths. So how I do that is I just select the column with left click, then right click, then column width. And I'm just going to paste the value from the other worksheet so that they look the same. These two probably have the same one. I'm going to copy and then paste. Again, left click to select, right click, select the column width, and then paste. And then this one, 156 again. This one is 256. Okay. One 56. $256. And then this one is the one that I copied. Okay. Now, after typing this, you can see that there's a space in between, like a cell that has no value. And that is because this is a merge cell. So whenever I select here, you can see that this is a single selection that takes 2 rows. So to create that, I select the 2 cells I'm interested in, I merge them, and then I can click on middle align so that this appears at the middle. And then you can see that this had a green background with white font, and then it's bolded. And it also has a 14 size font. And then one other thing is that it had a white border. So I select the color. I make sure the line style is the first one because it's the one I'm using on the other worksheet. I select on all borders. And then once I have that, I can be very lazy and copy this format to the other cells. I can do that by control copying and then selecting the next one and clicking here on paste formatting. Or I can also just click on format painter and then select the next one. So the destination cell. I have a shortcut with Alt-1 in my quick bar. I select format painter so I can more quickly do that. And then the last 3 are actually blue. Okay. And then now for the others, I also have a merged and then middle align. They're probably also 14. Yes. But now the border is not white. The border is actually this black. Okay. And now I'm going to copy these. Just going to make sure it looks the same. It does. I'm going to copy with Format Painter again. And then I'm going to select the entire range. All right. Now, this one, you could have seen that I have a drop-down menu with the options 1 to 12. So the way I do that is I go to Data, Data Validation. Here in Allow, I'm going to click on List, and I'm just going to put 1 through 12, separated by commas. You could also put these values on a different cell and then reference that range of cells instead of inputting them directly, but this works as well. And I also have a conditional formatting here that I'm going to add right now. For this occasion, I'm going to put just greater than 0. You'll see why. The reason is I just want this format because now I can go back and change in Manage Rules. This is the rule that I added. And then what I'm really interested in is saying blanks. So whenever cells are blanks, show these format, which is the yellow background with this dark yellow font, and then apply. And now this is actually saying I need an input here. And then these 3 last ones are actually formulas. So I'm going to add a gray background color to indicate that you shouldn't change that. That's also the reason why these 2 are green, meaning inputs, and these other 3 are blue with the gray background. Okay. Now, let's do the formulas for this section. So, month's first day, you're essentially going to do a date. So, this date formula, I can put a year, let's say 2025, of first month of first day, and you can see that it now says January 1st, 2025. And then the last day's month, I can do an end of month for the same date, so January 1st of 2025. And then the second argument is sort of an offset, so I don't want any offsets. So same month is going to give me the last day of January 2025. Now, dates in Excel are actually numbers offsetting from the very first date. So the very first date is just date 1, essentially. And you can see that the first date is January 1st of 1900. When I say give me the last day, it's just offsetting by 31 days or 30, right? Because this is 1 plus 30, 31. But when I add then back what I had, and I also add the date format to the cell, short date, then you can see that I'm now having January 31st, 2025. Then the start of the week is essentially just going to tell me the weekday of the first day of the month. This is telling me that the start of the week is number 4. So what I mean by this is number 1 is Sunday, always defined by this weekday formula. Number 2 is Monday, 3 is a Tuesday, then 4 is a Wednesday. So this means that January 1st, 2025 starts on a Wednesday. Obviously, this is not going to be fixed. This we want to reference not to 2025, but to this value. And then the month also to this value. But see what happens when it's empty? There's an error because there's nothing defined. So I also need to add a condition. And the condition is that both numbers should be greater than 0. Only when that's the case should I then use those as inputs. So if they're both, that's why the AND condition is there. If they're both larger than 0, then do the date. If not, then what I'm going to do is just a default date with the year of today. So whatever date is today, I'm going to extract the year. Same thing for today with the month. And then the day is always going to be 1 because we want the first day. And enter. So what happens if I do March of 2025? Notice that right now I enter 3, but it didn't change because it requires both conditions. Now you can see that it's March of 2025, March 1st. And then last day is March 31st, same year. And now the start of the week is a Saturday. So you can see here that Saturday, March 1st, is actually what's spitting out. And you'll see that this formula will come in handy for me to actually do the calendar. For now, just remember that I want to know which day of the week, where 1 is Sunday and 7 is Saturday, thus the start of the month correspond to. Now, that is the parameter section. Let's do the event table. So I'm typing date and event. Same thing as if I have done the same thing with the first parameter. So copy these two and then just enter them as values with the paste special menu. See that there's no difference. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to add the background color, the font color. Then I'm going to align it. And then it's most likely bolded. It is bolded. Okay. And then I just need to add the border. In this case, it's white. So select the color, add all borders. Once you have that, you can format paint and then click on the next one. Right, that's the header of the table. Now we have a date and an event. For event for now, I'm just going to add event 1. And here in date, let's see what happens if I put today, just so that you know the output. You can see that it's December 2024, and then event 1. Then I'm missing something. I'm missing a center for both. So this. And I'm actually also missing the borders, but in this case, it's not white. It's the black border. There you go. And just for the example, by the way, I don't want this to be just event 1. I'm actually going to add a formula, which obviously you won't keep because this is just for us to fill it out. But I'm going to add event. So the label event, text-wise, this means that I have to put double quotations at the beginning and at the end of my text input. And I added a space. And then I do the ampersand because I'm going to append event space to something else. And then the something else is going to be the row. For reference, I'm going to use this same row. So row C18 is just going to return 18 as a number. And I'm going to subtract 17 so that I start at 1. And these two, I need to copy 50 for this. So all the way to 67. I just selected with Control Copy and then moved the selection with Shift. And then once I have selected it all, I can just use Control V. I use Control V because that way my format and my formulas are copied. And by the way, I'm not going to use this. I'm going to use the first one, 4 months first date. And I'm just simply going to do this plus 1. Once I have that, I'm going to repeat the selection. I'm going to do Shift Control arrow key down to select the entire range. And I'm going to do Control down for Control D. And this means that whatever formula I had, it was just dragged down. So you can see that every single row is a new day. And then I have just event number sequentially listed for every single one of those 50 entries. All right. So that was a boring piece. I have the parameters and the events table. Nothing special. Now let's go to something a bit more fun, the calendar layout. So for calendar layout, you can see that I have essentially 5 things. I have the name of the day at the top, the number of the day, and then I have the week number, 1 through 6, and I also have 2 other things. I have a space for the check mark, and I have a space for the events. So let's do that for now. And I'm going to start on cell, F7 and F6. Okay, so for reference, on F6, I'm just going to put Sunday. This is not going to be like this. This is going to be a formula, but I'm just going to keep it for reference. And this I'm going to add for now. Again, this is not going to be it. I'm going to add this date. And this Sunday, I'm also going to add this date. And these two are actually merged. These two are merged. Now, this is the actual check mark. And week 1 starts here, if I'm not mistaken. Cell E8. E8. Week 1. All right. Now, the width for this, for G is whatever number. Remember, these widths are just arbitrary. It just looked okay, and I went with that value. Nothing scientific there. All right. And since I already have this, I can do background blue, white, it's probably bolded, center, and the border is also white. Select white, all borders. Now for the bottom, we mentioned that this is going to change depending on whether the number of the day, or essentially the date, is out of scope because it's before the month that I'm focusing on or after the month. For now, we'll just copy the color for every single one as a dark gray, and we'll come back to that later in the conditional formatting piece. All right. Now, what you can see is that I have a date here, and I'm going to keep the date actually, but it's not the format that I want. So the format that I want for the first one is the name of the day. So I clicked on this arrow here on number on the formatting piece on home, right? And then I'm going to go to custom. And in custom, I can change this type and then just type 1D, for example. You'll see a number 1 appearing. To these, there's a 0 padding on the left in case there's only 1 digit. 3Ds, there's an abbreviation of the name. And then 4Ds gives me the entire full name day. I'm going to use that one for the top. And for the bottom, you might have guessed it, I'm actually going to use just 1 day, 1D, because I don't want the 0 padding. I don't like it. And then I'm going to click OK. Once I have this, I don't remember if I added a border here, so I'm just going to click again. Once I have this, I can copy this entire thing and have essentially 7 selections to the right, or in this case, 6 more than what I have. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Then I'm going to go 1 down, and I'm going to do 2 things. I'm going to do Ctrl-Alt-V first for widths, and then Ctrl-Alt-V, and then T for formats. And once I have this, you can see that I already have my layout for the header, at least, of this layout. Then this one is very similar to here. I'm actually going to borrow this color. So I'm going to put it here. I'm going to do white. And then this one has a different orientation, and it's also merged. So it's merged. As you can see, this is a single selection until row 12. So 12, I merge this, I middle align, and then the orientation is here. I just have to put rotate text up, and it looks the same. I bold it, and I think that's it. Probably I have a border, but I don't see it. Oh, I do. So it's white as well. And now I can copy these and do week 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And manually come here and edit the week numbers. Oops, not 41. 40. Sorry, 4. Then 5. Then 6. Okay. And now I can also copy these and just paste it here. And you can see that I'm doing the format painter. And one last thing, I'm missing these things. I have to align center, then the font, I think it's the same. So it's just black, right? Automatic. And then, yeah, I didn't change that. Okay. And then the other thing is I need to add borders to these, but it's not white, it's actually black. So select the black color, all borders, and then one more thing. These have a drop-down menu, right? Whenever you have here. Oh, it's actually not black now that I notice. It's kind of like a gray, like a lighter tone, I think. Easy fix. I think it's this one. Doesn't really matter. It's just for us to have the exact same tone. Yeah, okay. And now, How do I add these drop down? It's very similar to this one, except that I need a check mark value. To get a checkmark value, the easiest way to do that is you just type equals unichar and then 10,003. That's the value that your computer knows that there's a checkmark there. Once you have that, you click copy and then paste as value. And now you can select the checkmark directly here. And with that, I can select this entire range, go to data, validation, and then add the list with the checkmark, Control V, and a dash, which is for me just the minus sign. I hit OK, and then now you can see that I have the drop down on those 5 cells. I copy these, and then I'm just gonna paste the entire selection here. Okay, I'm gonna delete the values just so that I don't carry them over. But you can see that the drop down is working. And I'm gonna select this entire thing. And I'm gonna copy paste, paste. Nice. And that's it for the layout. Now to more interesting stuff, the formulas. So the formulas, I introduced one that was already the one that I was gonna use. But what about this one? So remember that what we want is for this to always start on a Sunday. And right now it starts on a Saturday because it's starting on the first day of the month that I'm specifying. That's just the formula that I am using. So the way I'm doing that easy fix is that I'm telling this calendar to say start on the day that corresponds to this first day minus the offset that you have because of the start of the week given by these dates, and add 1 because if not, I'm just going to subtract 1 whole week. And I can keep these 2 fixed, not really necessary, but you can if you like everything tidy and everything the same like in my example. And then once I input this formula, you'll see that it's now starting on a Sunday. If I change the month, say to January, starts on a Sunday. November, Sunday. May, same thing. All right. So that was just because I know when the start of the week is coming based on the day that I specified. This is probably not the best name for this label because start of the week is when this day ends up being in the week. So the 5th day of the week, where the day number 1, as I mentioned, is Sunday. And if I use this one, for example, this is a Wednesday. If I use this one, this is a Saturday for April. This is a Tuesday, and so on and so forth. But what I need this is to offset to know when my week is going to start, right? When the month is going to start, so that I can calculate back for these to always be a Sunday. That's essentially what I'm doing. Once I have this, I can just do one simple thing. I can say this date, remember, this is a date. This is not a Sunday value. This is actually a date. It's just displayed via the name. So I can just add 1, and I will have a Monday. The same thing here, the Tuesday, and so on. I can just copy paste this. And you can see that the start of the week in this case is 3. So 1, 2, 3, Tuesday. So you'll see here that the date will end up being April 1st. Now for the bottom row, I'm going to do the same thing. The start plus 1. And then the start plus 1. I just carry over the formula. And notice that because I didn't freeze the reference, every time I move to the right, the formula moves to the right as well. So as promised, April 1st is a Tuesday. On March, it was a Saturday. On November, again, Saturday. What happens on May? Just so you know the difference. It's a Thursday. Okay, this seems to be working. Now, the formula that goes here is you can do 2 things. You can do this, the nth plus 1, right? Or you can also do equals the previous week plus 7 because it's a fixed offset by 7 days. And the advantage of doing that is that you can also control copy and control paste the formula because the reference is always the same. right? Not the same, but what I mean is that the reference is moving in the same direction and by the same number of cells. And that way you can select this entire thing and then copy it below. Because what I'm doing right now is instead of adding 27 plus 7 days, I'm adding to 4 the 7 days. And if I repeat the same thing, now my base is going to be the 11 because the reference, again, because I didn't freeze it, is moving alongside my copied cells. So we can just copy these to week 5, copy these to week 6, and there you have it. Now we have all our days formulas, right? The dates are now working properly. Let's compare that with this set to March. Okay. Now, the difference is that I need these other two formulas. Well, actually, only one formula, right? The one that is telling me which event needs to be fetched from my event table on the left. So how do I do that? Okay, one thing is you could say, well, let's just say equals this, right? But this is not sustainable because this one actually is March 1st. So this is not going to work. So the first thing I need to do is to check for which of these events matches the date that is specified here on 23. So for that, you have a filter formula. So let's filter. Then the array is going to be this entire thing. I'm going to fix it. And then include is going to be a formula. Include is going to be me telling Excel, use this entire range and then compare it against this day. And then if empty, put nothing. That is the double quote, and then enter. Right now, I don't have anything on the 23rd. But what happens if instead of starting here, I start here? Now you can see event 1 pops in. If I copy the formula to the next Monday 24, event 2, event 3, event 4, and that's just because that's the way I listed my events, right? Sequentially, as well as the dates is sequential. Okay, that was a good first step. But what happens if I do this? I'm going to just put equals the first, equals the previous, right? The previous. So you can see that this list is growing dynamically because it's a filter function. So there's an array that's being spit out by the formula. But as soon as I hit 6 events, see what happens. Boom, there's an error. And this error happens because Excel is trying to add the next result to this row, to row, I think it's 13, but there's a value already there, so it cannot do it. So it says, whoa, buddy, I don't know what to do because you told me to give you all these values, but then there's already one there, so it's telling me there's a spill error. The way you fix that is actually a bit more complicated than you might think, because it would be ideal if in this formula you could say up to like a max, like up to 5, for example, but you can see that there is no other argument in this formula. So what you need to do is actually you need to do two things. First, you need to do an index of these. An index is essentially going to say, treat these as an entire array, right? As you can see, event 1, event 2, event 3, and so on forward until event 6. By the way, whenever you select a formula here, like a coherent formula, for example, this is a coherent formula, right? A complete argument. You'll see that you have the result on the top. So it's a quick and easy way of debugging your formulas. So back to the index 1, you select this entire thing, and it's telling, okay, this entire array, now tell me which rows you want from this array. And the rows are actually going to be a sequence. Why a sequence? Because a sequence is a formula, again in Excel, that is going to allow me to give an output sequentially. And what I mean is, let's go back a bit here. Let's put sequence here so that you can see the output, and I'm just not speaking with no evidence. And the way sequence works is that you will specify the number of rows, the number of columns, where you will start, and by how much you will increase your sequence. In this case, I'm only interested in a one-dimension array, so it's just going to be rows. So how many rows? In this case, for example, I could say 5 rows, then no columns, and then start on 1, and then step on 1. But since they're all optional, I can just delete those, keep the 5 there, and I get this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If I change the argument to say 7, I have 1 through 7. If I change it to 1, I have only 1. Okay? So back to these. Let's add the index back. And then, as I said, a sequence. But how many rows? I actually want to limit this to 5. So it's going to be the minimum of the number of rows within this array. Right? The same exact result I'm already using. And the other minimum is just 5. And then sequence has nothing else. And then for index, again, I'm selecting within a matrix, but this is only rows or like a one-dimension vector. So you don't need to specify number of columns either, so you can close this. And then once I do this, bam, it's fixed. Because now, thanks to this sequence min, if I select this entire formula, you can see that the result is 5. And if I do rows, where are you? Here. You can see that the result is 6. So the minimum between 6 and 5, obviously 5. So it's going to create a sequence from 1 to 5. And it's going to tell, okay, give me element 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And full stop. Doesn't really matter if I have more than 5. I'm going to stop there. Obviously, if you add more rows here, like from your layout, you create this dynamically and then you say, okay, I want 10 elements, you can go up to 10 and have no errors. But for now, I'm just going to limit it to 5. And by the way, this formulas that split arrays, you don't need to specify the formula on every single row. You just have to put it on the first row. And then if there's a result, you can see that now it's a bit grayed out and I cannot change it because it's already part of an array. But you don't have to put the formula here, just in the first row. So that fixed our problems. And by the way, here you can also put like a comma if you want, or you can delete it because it's optional. And once you have that, you can simply copy and paste this formula. And voila. All right, now let's copy this entire thing below, and you can see that I now have 13, 14, and so on. And now I can continue just copying these into the other weeks. And it's now updating every single row accordingly to my selections on the event table. All right, now we're only missing the conditional formatting, right? 2 conditional formattings we're missing. We want first, whenever we select this check mark, for this to be crossed out, for us to mark it as complete, whether this is a task, an event, a schedule, an appointment, whatever you want to call it. And then the second thing is that if we go back here, you can see that this is a lighter gray color because this is not part of the month, which is in scope, in this case March. And also, this is April already, so this needs also to be in a different gray color. So, as in previous occasions, we're going to go to conditional formatting. I select, by the way, the entire thing, and then go to conditional formatting. Oh, I think, okay, my bad. I need to select the entire thing, conditional formatting, and then click on new rule. I'm going to use a formula, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to say if F7 is less than my month's first date, then I want the fill to be gray. Probably, I don't know which one of these two is. Probably this one. Let's check it out. Okay. Now, how the conditional formattings actually work You can think of this as a formula that Excel is going to be dragging all the way to the right and all the way to down in your range that's selected. In this case, I only have one row, so it's going to drag it to the right. So every single cell that it's going to be evaluated is as if I had copied the formula and then pasted it. So if I'm copying and pasting the formula, when I arrive to column H, the formula, I want column H, so the value in H7. That's why I'm not updating this with dollar signs. I'm leaving it like that. I want that to be compared against the month's first date. And this is going to be a fixed reference, so that's why the dollar signs appear on C and on 10. The same thing will going to happen with Q and with S, or with P and with R. Remember, these are merged, so the reference is actually P and then R. And in this case, it's going to compare when it's dragged all the way to the right. It's going to tell R7 less than C10. And I don't need any ifs or any other condition because this is going to be evaluated as a whole. So if this is true or this is false, my result is just going to be true or false. And whenever it's true, it's going to apply the formatting that I just added. Also, notice that I don't need to change the font color because it's already given by whatever the value was before. So I don't need to change it because it's already white. So you hit OK, and then look at it. It's now updating. And it was the right gray color, by the way. And then one more thing, the same thing, but I now need to have in the manage rules, new rule. Oh, actually, let's go to manage rules. I'm going to duplicate this rule because the formatting is going to be the same. But now I'm going to edit. And this one just needs to be the opposite. If it's greater than the end of the month, so C12, yes, 12, hit OK, and then apply, OK. And then the other thing I'm going to do, and then I'm going to copy the entire block to the rest of the blocks. So I'm working on this entire block, week 1, and then I'm just going to copy the formatting to the other blocks. The other thing I need to do is I need to tell that whenever this is a check mark, this needs to be crossed out. And the easiest thing to do is I just select this entire thing, conditional formatting, and then a new rule. And then what I'm going to say is I'm going to say use a formula. And then, oops, I probably don't have the check mark selected. No. So let me select it here. Sorry for that. Again, I just copied the check mark to the clipboard, new rule. And then I'm going to do a formula. And then whenever, right, which cell? Whenever cell F8 is a check mark, and because it's a text, I need the double quotations. If F8 is a check mark, then strike it out. Okay. And again, there are no fixed references because I'm starting on G8. And here for G8, the formula is going to check on F8. And then on G9, on F9, and so on and so forth. If I copy these into now I will simply copy the entire format, and since the formula is not fixed, it's going to still work, and the references are going to be carried over as intended. So I'm going to click OK, and then you can see that whenever I select a check mark, it's crossed out. If it's empty or if there's a dash, nothing happens. So I'm just going to copy. I'm actually, just so that you see that it works, I'm going to leave this. And I'm going to copy the entire thing with Control Copy because the formula and the conditional formatting and every single other thing for formatting is compatible. So I don't need to worry about overwriting anything. So I just Control Copy. And you can see that whenever I hit Control V, I select the entire thing by the way because I am copying conditional formatting as well. So whenever I do Control V, obviously I carried over the check mark, but see that whenever I have the check mark, it's crossed out, and as soon as I delete it, it's not. So I know it's working, the formula is working, the conditional formatting is working. And now what I can do is I can just select the entire thing, and then with the Format Painter, copy these into the next sections. Now, I just want you to notice one thing. If I go to Conditional Formatting and go to Manage Rules, and then select this worksheet, see that I have 2 of these, even though I probably could have just have one. Why that happened is because this is the original one, and then for the other one, I essentially copy paste for the entire range. So Excel very intelligently grouped the ranges in a single coherent rule. But if you copy and paste each one individually, you would end up with a copy of different conditional formattings. So depending on how you do it, you can simplify the conditional formatting manager. Doesn't really matter right now for this exercise as a whole, because you're not going to maintain this, you're not going to change it. But if you want to change the format for one, for example, you want to put it on green or something, and you have a bunch of different rules, you have to go manually change each one of those, or you have to just update the entire selection. So just be mindful of how you copy and paste those rules, because you might end up simplifying your life or just making it more complicated. So I'm going to just click OK. And then what happens if I select this entire thing and then hit on the painter and then paint the entire thing all the way till the end? You can now see that I have the light gray correctly updating, and then my strike through effect also working. Very nice. Now, just to test this out, let's add the rest of the events on the last day. So 47. And let's see if this works. All right, it's working. Now, what I can see is that if I go to Manage Rules, then I go to this worksheet, you can see that it got very simple, because what I did is I copied the rule for the entire thing. So I didn't add a lot of rules. As you can see, Excel grouped them correctly. But just know that depending on how you do it, as I was mentioning it, it might get a bit ugly because of how you're copying and pasting them. And you can see that the first one got individually copied, right? And then the other ones were grouped just for the rest of the columns, because it mimicked the rules that I have here. There's one for the first one, then there's a rest for the groups, and then same thing here. You only have one for the weeks 2 onwards, right? Same rule, but just for the other date, and then one for the first 2, the date larger than and greater than and lower than. And this one obviously was the one for validation. Compared to, for example, if I go to my original one, where I copied pasted each one of them, like one by one, see what ends up happening. You see, I have like so many here. It's harder to maintain. I did this in a smart way, but for the rest I didn't. So in case you want to change one, it's going to be a bit of a messy situation. Anyways, that was essentially it for conditional formatting, for the layout, for the formulas. Now, what we're missing is to change this into a checkbox. And before we do that, I'm actually going to format this in a very particular way that I like. So I just changed the width for the last one. And then I like doing 2 things. The first one is I like using a gray background color for the entire thing. And I'm just going to speed this up so that you don't have to see every single thing I change. Now that I have added the gray background, the other thing that I like is to go to View and then hit on here, Grid Lines, deactivate this. And then you can see that it looks much more clean. If I compare it against this one, oh, okay, I centered this. If you want, you can not center it, or you can center them if you want. But the rest, I think, is the same. All right. So as I was mentioning, last thing is for us to do the checkbox version. How are we going to do that? So we can do two things. We can right click and then hit on move or copy, select create a copy and then move to the end. Or we can also use the control key, hit it, and then with the mouse left click, you drag this and then that creates a copy. You can rename it with right click rename. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put dash checkbox. All right. And then let me actually, just so that this looks exactly the same, I'm also going to speed these up. I am going to left align. Okay. So back to our checkbox version. First thing is we need to delete the validations. So to delete the validations, first I just make sure that there are no check marks or dashes. Everything's empty. Okay. Then you can simply select the entire thing, go to data, and then when you hit daily validation, it's going to tell you that not all cells have the same settings. You're just going to click on yes and then clear all. This is only clearing the validations, nothing else. And once you have that, you can insert the checkboxes here. Go to insert checkbox. By the way, these checkboxes are relatively new to Excel. They were introduced around June 2024. So if you don't see these checkbox in your insert, means that your version is still not supporting those and you won't be able to use this functionality. But in case you see this, it's as easy as I just did. I just inserted them. And then the other thing you need to do, obviously this thing won't work because as you can see the value, I have placed my cursor on cell F8 where you can see that I have my first checkbox. Whenever the checkbox is unselected, it's a false value. If it's selected, it's a true value. So what I need to do is I need to go and change my conditional formatting rules. I'm going to do these worksheets. And then as you can see, I have so many here because I copied and pasted format. So it's now a mess. So instead of going by one, what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to select this entire thing. Oops, no. I'm selecting only the events spaces. So I'm leaving the names and the number of the days out of the selection. And then I'm going to go to conditional formatting. I'm going to clear rules only from selected cells. And then once I did that, I'm going to do another new rule. And by the way, look at this. Manage rules. These worksheet. You can see that I don't have the checkmark rules anymore. In the same menu, I can just click new rule, go to formula. And then here, what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to do since I selected the checkboxes as well, I need to start now on column E. So I'm just going to say whenever E8 is true. It's as simple as that. I'm going to format this with the strike through. I'm going to hit OK. And then I'm going to click OK. Apply. And look how this entire range is now very succinctly put in here because I did my selection. I'm going to apply, and then I'm going to click OK. And then let's see if this works. Ooh, it doesn't work. Okay, let's see why. I'm just going to focus on this one. Manage rules equals, because it started on some weird. Okay, I just need to do this as well. Sometimes Excel, just because of your selection, I have not yet figured out why, but it won't see what reference it started using, like something way on the right. So I just need to tell it, hey man, like, come on, dude. But I'm gonna start with the first. Sorry, here. I'm gonna start with this one, just so that Excel knows that I'm changing the first one. And it was E8. Okay, let's see. Okay, apply. And then let's go to the beginning. And there you go. Okay, I don't know exactly why sometimes Excel thinks that you're applying the range to something else and it will do whatever it wants and change your reference. Just make sure your reference is the one that I was mentioning. And I can actually do two things here. I can go and copy like every single checkbox if you want and do insert and checkbox. But honestly, easiest thing to do because this already has the same format, same formula, same conditional formatting, same everything. I can just copy these and then very lazily copy till the end. Remember to select the entire 5 spaces because if not, you're not going to copy the checkboxes correctly. And then once you have this, let's just see if this works. Oops, obviously not there. It is working. And select the entire thing again. And then now let's insert it here, here, 4, 5, and 6. And to check this, there you go. It works. Very nicely done. Now, one last thing. If I go to this checkbox version, which is the one that will be downloaded in the example, if you go to the conditional formatting, manage rules, you'll see that the mess is there. Oh, this one is very clean. Sorry, the mess is here on the dynamic calendar one because this one is the one that I just copied and pasted each one individually. So remember, as I mentioned, if you want to manage these in a more clean way, you just have to make sure that your selections or whenever you copy and paste, you do that in an orderly fashion. Otherwise, Excel is just going to assign the rules to each one of the ranges that you copy in order that you're telling it to do it, but it won't be smart enough to actually group them and identify it as a single rule. So let's just quickly recap. Parameters, check. Events table, the layout, the formulas, and the formatting for the calendar. And then we have our nice and very clean checkbox version. Perfect. Thank you. And that's a wrap. Thanks so much for tuning in today. I hope you found this video helpful. If you did, don't forget to give it a thumbs up or drop a comment below to let me know what you think. If you're into Excel and want to learn more, consider subscribing to my channel. I'll be posting more tutorials and courses to help you level up your spreadsheet skills and create awesome templates and tools. And hey, if you're in the hunt for more productivity and planning tools, check out my store. The link's in the description. Until next time, stay productive, stay awesome.